My name is Jerome Make, a member of this committee.
Ndimacheloni ndimabijalibuwa ne member wa committee ne ya chipolisa ndolibuwa.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning. I'm Zakhele Mpele, committee member.
Thank you very much, honourable members. Honourable Minister of Police, you're very much welcome.
Thanks very much, Chairperson, honourable members of Portfolio Committee, the guests and the media. I will request Wameni, man. I don't know if you want to know who is there from this army when it's brought here, but it's good. I'm sure they'll go quick, so that you begin to link the face with the names. General Stoller, just moving quick. Stop all other titles. Just you are National Commissioner, and then they go.
Thanks, Honourable Minister, Honourable Chair, Honourable members. Our delegation is as follows. They'll just show as we continue. Of course, I am the National Commissioner. Lieutenant General Libya, the National Head of DPCI, is here. Then Lieutenant General F.N. Vuma, the Deputy National Commissioner, Asset and Legal. Then Lieutenant General P.C. Ngwenya, Deputy National Head, HRM. Lieutenant General S.J.P. Skete, Deputy National Commissioner, Management Intervention. Lieutenant General S.F. Masemura, Deputy National Commissioner, Policing. Lieutenant General L.E. Njinga, Provincial Commissioner, Eastern Cape. Lieutenant General M.D. Sembe, Provincial Commissioner, Free State. Lieutenant General N.S. Mkwanazi, Acting Provincial Commissioner, KZN. Lieutenant General N.J. Lidwaba, Provincial Commissioner, Limpopo. Lieutenant General P.M. Zuma, Provincial Commissioner, Mpumalanga. Lieutenant General P.P. Motsonyane, Provincial Commissioner, Northwest. Lieutenant General R.P. Shiburi, Provincial Commissioner, Northern Cape. Lieutenant General K.E. Jula, Provincial Commissioner, Western Cape. Lieutenant General S. Jafta, Acting Divisional Commissioner, Visual Policing. Lieutenant General T.C. Musigili, Divisional Commissioner, Detective Services. Lieutenant General Advocate M.D. Magadlela, Divisional Commissioner, Forensic. Lieutenant General P.A. Jacobs, Divisional Commissioner, Crime Intelligence. Major General Motsipi, Provincial Commissioner, Gauteng, is acting. Major General Z.M. Kwanazi, Acting Divisional Commissioner, Operation and Response. Major General T.N. Sekukuni, Head Crime Registrar. Major General L. Singh, Head Executive Support Officer of the National Commissioner. Brigadier S.A. Pillay, Acting Component Head Strategic Management. Brigadier V.S. Naidu, National Commissioner Spokesperson. Brigadier L.S. Malathela, Section Head Executive Secretariat, Office of the National Commissioner. And the last one is Colonel K.B. Stein, Parliamentary Liaison Strategic Management. Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Chairperson, we have in the Office of the Minister, Advocate Kamane. And then we have Advocate Lieutenant General, former DA MP, and the Special Advisor to the Minister of Police, Leonard Max. And we have our spokesperson and the Office of the Minister, Mr. Serero. And we have our link with the Parliament and Cabinet, Vuyo. And we have more people coming from the Office of the Ministry. If they all just rise and say we are from your office. Thank you. Now we'll take it back to you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Minister, for the introduction of the team. Maybe members, just in terms of our time span for this morning, we will give an opportunity about 45 minutes to SAPS to go through the relevant presentation. We will then give members 2 or 3 questions. Of course, the Minister will have a press conference just after this event. So we will try to ensure that we, time-wise, work effectively. There's also a sitting in the House, so we will have to balance all those factors. Without further ado, we will give over to the Minister and the National Commissioner for the briefing and comments. Thank you.
Chairperson, after this one, I would love to meet the committee, maybe through you, to find our way going forward. How are we going to do this exercise? While we highly appreciate to brief the committee and how do we do it, is too much mixed masala between now, press briefing and all that. But for this one, this has happened, but I would like us to sit down and find the way going forward. That's that. I'm not going to talk too much, Chairperson. The crime stats this financial year, 2017-18, is nothing to write home about. Absolutely nothing to write home about. They'll give the raw figures, of which I always appreciate. I don't like crime stats that are given on percentages, because percentages hide serious information in terms of the raw figures. Nothing to write home about. I think our emphasis would be what to be done, rather than the crime stats, which doesn't give any joy to talk about, and they'll give them the example I have all the time when I talk about these stats. It doesn't matter what figures you put, but if you can't deal and control the murder cases, we are not bringing any joy to the South African people. It doesn't matter what else you reduce, but if people die, and looks like the figure this time, they're dying 57 a day. That's how South Africans are murdered. 7 a day. It is borders close to the war zone, while there is peace and there is no war in South Africa. Surely, the figures that they always scare me are murder figures that 2009-2010, we moved murder figures from 18,000 to 16,000. There was no 17. The historical trend is that we are going down on thousands. It would be 20, 19, 18, 16. But 2010, 2010, we moved straight from 18 to 16. And 2010, 2011, we moved, I think, to 15,000. And we sustained that 2011, 2012. From 2012, 2013, we took off. And here we are today on 20,000 people. Somebody has calculated it, that if we had kept the trend, we would be talking about 9,000 people murdered. But we're talking about 20,000. So those are figures that I always measure. And I immediately say the South African Police Service dropped the ball. We literally dropped the ball for such figures to happen. But let me allow to get those figures to the members. I want to put it here, Chairperson, the Honourable Portfolio Committee, that the answer we must give is what to be done. Because I have said to the members of the South African Police, never again that we come here to give such statistics. Either this kind of statistics or worse than this. It cannot be that South Africans are put under such stress and such fear and such murder. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. National Commissioner, General Sitoli, welcome.
Thanks very much, Honorable Chair, Honorable Minister. With your permission, Chair, I am going to introduce Major General Sikukuni to take the committee through the stats presentation. Thank you, General.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, honorable members, National Commissioner. I'll be presenting the annual crime statistics covering the period 1 April 2017 to the 31st of March 2018. The table of contents, I think, Chairperson, with your permission, can we skip the introductory slides and then go to the broad categories, because I think that's where more of the information is sitting. What we'd like to report on in this current financial period is that in the current financial year, that is 2017-18, that is slide 6 on the big presentation. In the current financial year, the South African Police Service recorded 2,096,781 counts of serious crimes, 1,662,815 were counts of the 17 community reported crimes, and 433,966 were crimes dependent on police action. The current 1,662,815 counts of the 17 community reported serious crimes, they are 76.
General, maybe just the microphone, if you just can adjust that, you speak into it, you know, there's apparently sound issues. Thank you.
The current 1,662,815 17 community reported crimes and 433,966 were crimes dependent on police action. Now, when you compare this current figure of 1,662,815, they are 76,165 counts lesser than the previous financial year's 17 community reported crimes. Then when we look at the contribution of the broad categories of crimes, we realize that the broad category of contact crimes was the highest contributor to the 17 community reported crimes, contributing 601,366,000 charges. This was followed by property-related crimes, which contributed 507,975. Other serious crimes reported 438,113. And the last category among the 4 categories making up the 17 community reported crimes was contact-related crimes, which contributed 115,361. So in terms of the percentage contribution, contact crimes contributed 36.2%, property-related 30.5%, other serious 26.3%, and contact-related crime 6.9%. Now, on the next slide, we looked at the 10-year trend from 2008-9 and then up to 2017-18. We have color-coded the numbers within the financial year just to highlight instances whereby the particular crimes were coming down. That is, in an essence, to say that if we are to return South Africa or South Africans to a point where they feel safe, we need to at least try to benchmark against instances within the 10-year period whereby the particular crimes were on a decline. Now, looking at the crime of murder, we started in 2008-9 at 18,084. We were at the lowest in the financial year 2011-12, whereby we recorded 15,554. And then in the current financial year, we had recorded 20,336. That is, when you compare to the previous financial year, we have recorded 1,320 murders more than the previous financial year. And in terms of percentage, that translates to 6.9. As the Minister has already indicated, if you don't take into consideration other factors like your population increase, etc., this translates basically on average to 57 people being killed on average per day in South Africa. Now, sexual offenses, which is the second crime after murder, the highest point was in the 2008-9 financial year, whereby we recorded 69,197. And over the years, we have observed a decrease of 49,000. The previous financial year, we recorded a decrease of, that is 2016-17, the numbers were 49,660. Unfortunately, in the current financial year, we have added additional 448 cases, or 0.9. Then attempted murder, similarly to murder, was at its lowest point in the 2011-12 financial year, where we had 14,730. And then in the current financial year, we had 18,233. So if we are to return to that state where people are and feel safe, at least we need to benchmark that our lowest point should be the crimes that were, the figures that were realized in the 2011-12 financial year, which is the lowest point in the 10-year trend of the attempted murder. Assault GBH, in 2008-9, we recorded 202,328 counts. That was the highest number in terms of assault GBH over the 10-year trend. And then we are now sitting at the lowest in terms of that particular crime. And then the reduction is 3,264 charges, or 1.9% decrease. Common assault, the highest point was in 2009-10, and currently we are sitting at the lowest of 156,243, or 207 cases less. That is a 0.1% decrease. Then robbery with aggravating circumstances was also at its lowest in the 2011-12 financial year. Then we increased in the financial year 2016-17, where it was at its highest with 140,956. And then we have realized a decrease in the current financial year compared to the previous financial year. That is, we have reduced this crime by 2,592 counts, or 1.9% less. Overall, when one looks at the broad category of contact crimes, we have increased in terms of 3 crimes. That is your murder, sexual offenses, and attempted murder. The other 4 of the 7 categories have gone down. That is your assault GBH, assault common robbery, and robbery with aggravating circumstances. And then overall, the broad category of the contact crimes have decreased by 1.1%. Now, when you further break down the robbery aggravating circumstances into its component crimes like carjacking, robbery residential, again, these crimes were also at their lowest in the 2011-12 financial year, whereby carjacking we recorded 9,417, and then in 2016-17 was the highest peak, which was 16,107. However, we have realized a decrease of 392 counts when comparing 2016-17 to 2016-17 to 17-18. Robbery at the residential premises was also at its lowest in 2011-12. Then the highest point was in the financial year 2016-17, where we had 22,343. And then we realized the decrease of 82 cases when comparing 2016-17 to 2016-17. That is a 3.1% decrease. Robbery of cash in transit, the highest point was in 2008-9. And then we have reached the lowest point at 2014-15. Unfortunately, since 2014-15, we had 3 consecutive years whereby this crime has been increasing. In 2016-17, we had 152 cases. Current financial year, we had 238. Then we are currently case difference of 86. That is, it has increased by 56.6. Robbery, bank robbery was its highest point at 2008-9. The lowest point was in 2016-17 with 3 cases. 2017-18, this crime has increased by 10 counts. That is the difference between the 3 and the 10. Then truck hijacking, we have also been at the highest point in 2008-9. However, we have in 2011-12, we had the lowest point, which was 821. And in the current financial year, unfortunately, when we compare to the previous financial year, it has also increased. Where we seem to be achieving some results was in contact crimes, that is both your arson and malicious damage to property. They have both gone down. Arson gone down by 452 charges, malicious damage to property gone down by 4,917, and overall the category has gone down by 5,369. Robbery, property-related crimes, that includes your burglary, both residential and non-residential, theft of motor vehicle and motorcycle, theft out of and stock theft. We have realized decreases across the 4. That is your burglary at non-res, a decrease of 4,423. Burglary at residential, 18,560. Unfortunately, in stock theft, we have increased, and then this increase has been consistent for the past 3 years. And then currently, I think we are sitting at the highest point at 28,849. Now, looking at the 17 community reported crimes over a 10-year trend, they have decreased from 1,885,881 to 1,662,815. That is 76,165 counts less. Now, the 17 community reported crimes have been decreasing for 6 consecutive years, reaching the lowest point in the current financial year. That is the 76,165 that we are referring to in this instance. Now, the broad categories 2-year comparison, which I've already touched when we're looking at the 10-year trend, but this year it has just been summarized to give you a picture at a glance. Contact crimes have decreased by 1.1%, that is 6,955, or when you compare the numbers, it's 608,321 in the 2016-17 financial year, and currently we have 601,366. Similarly, contact-related crimes, which include your arson and malicious damage to property, have also gone down by 5,369. Property-related crimes, 32,678. And then other serious crimes we've decreased by 31,163. Now, we look at the top 30 stations in terms of the 17 community reported crimes, and what we have observed is that most of the stations that are sitting in the top 30 stations for the 17 community reported crimes are stations from Gauteng, where we had 13 stations in the top 30 stations being in the Gauteng province. Western Cape had 9, KZN had 4, Free State, Mpumalanga, Northwest, and the Northern Cape have contributed 1 station each to the top 30 station. What is also worth noting is that most of these stations are those stations that are servicing the metros or central business district within the respective provinces. And when one looks at the contribution of the top 30 stations to the total 17 community reported crimes, these stations contribute the weight of 15% of all the 17 community reported crimes that we have reported in the current financial year. The breakdown in terms of the provinces, we have realized the decreases across all the 17 community reported crimes, and all the provinces have recorded decreases. Now, when we get to contact crimes, we have a situation whereby we were at the lowest at 608,000. Then we had 3 consecutive years where the contact crimes have been increasing, and the 2 years in 2016-17 and 2017-18, we have realized the decreases. Then in terms of the contact crime top 30 stations, we had, again, Gauteng had 14 stations in the top 30 contact crimes. Then Western Cape had 9, KZN had 4 each, Eastern Cape, Free State, Northwest had 1 station each. Now, in terms of the total contribution of the 17 of the contact crimes, these 30 stations have recorded 93,427 counts of contact crimes. So they are contributing a weight of 15.5% to the 601,366 counts that have been reported in terms of contact crimes. The only province that have realized an increase in terms of the contact crimes was the province of Northwest, which had increased by 1,121. And then the highest volume in reduction was realized in the Free State, where we had 2,016 charges, from 37,741 to 35,725. Then the Western Cape also had a reduction of 1,708 charge reduction, from 114,704 to 112,996. The last among the provinces which has achieved a reduction above 1,000 charges was Limpopo, with a reduction of 1,696, or moving from 36,764 to 35,068. Now, this breakdown gives the crimes that are contributing to the broad category of contact crimes. Then looking at the murder, we have recorded 1,320 more murders in the current financial year vis-a-vis the previous financial year. That is, in 2016, we had 19,016 murders. Currently, we have 20,336. Attempted murder has also increased from 18,205 to 18,233. Robbery aggravating circumstances decreased by 2,592. Common robbery decreased by 2,688. Rape increased by 207 charges, from 39,828 to 40,035. Sexual assault also increased by 515 cases, and assault GBH decreased by 3,264. Similarly, common assault decreased by 207 charges. Then this is the 10-year trend of the murder. When what we observe here, from the lowest point in 15,000 in 2011-12 of 15,544, this crime has increased for the past 6 consecutive years to reach a peak of 20,336 in the current financial year. Again, the other thing that is worth noting is that in the 2008-9, 2009-10, when you look at the population ratios, we have managed to skip 3 digits in terms of population ratios. That is, we moved from 36.4 per 100,000 to 33.3 per 100,000. And unfortunately, after the lowest point, which we have observed in the 2011-12 financial year, we have been on an increase, and then the ratios have been increasing like 34.1, 34 point, now we are sitting at 35.2 murders per 100,000. Then the top 30 stations in terms of murder, Western Cape had 10 stations in the top 30 stations, followed by Gauteng with 9, then KZN with 6, Eastern Cape 5, and then these 30 stations contributed 4,124 murders to the national total that we have observed in the previous slide. That is, the top 30 stations in terms of murder contributed 20% of all the murders that we have realized in the province. Now, there are a number of contributory factors that we looked in when we look at the crime of murder. This table was extracted from the BI, which indicated that these are instances where multiple victims were killed in one instance. The yellow bar up there, that is the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 11, it shows the number of victims that were killed in an incident. And then the rows going down, like for instance, Eastern Cape 46, it shows that 2 people were killed in 46 instances in the Eastern Cape. So it is read across like that. Now, the motives surrounding multiple murders range from incidents of group retaliation against criminal elements terrorizing the community, such as the incident in the Marikana informal settlement in Philippi East, during which 11 people were killed in one instance in which it lasted a total of less than 30 minutes on a Friday night. And most of the deceased were killed in a shebeen, apparently in a revenge attack by a gang who had 7 of their own members killed earlier in the week. That is the 11 people that were killed in the Western Cape was in the Marikana informal settlement. Then we also had the killing of competitors, especially in the 7 illegal miners that were killed in the East Rand in Gauteng, and also keeping in mind the massacre that happened at the Engcobo police station, in which a police official and a soldier was killed. Now, similar incidents of violence on farms and small holdings, they often result in multiple murders. And then what we have also observed is that hostel-related murders remain the reality in KZN, and during the period under discussion, 16 of the murders reported in the Umlazi policing precinct, for which a motive could be established, originated from the Cleveland hostel, while gang violence in the Western Cape frequently involved more than one victim. Now, we also tried to look at the criminal behavior motives for the murder. And the table that we are showing here, it indicates selected circumstances which we believe had a contribution to murder statistics, which could be classified according either to motive, activity, or economic sector. Now, from the remote database that is maintained by Crime Intelligence Division, it could be established that 973 murders committed in the country were gang-related. And then the province with the highest number of gang-related murders was the Western Cape with 808, and then the Eastern Cape had 87 gang-related murders. Then from BI data mining revealed that mob justice or injustice was the second highest contributor when we look at the breakdown in terms of the murder, having recorded 849 instances with the provinces contributing the highest are Gauteng with 264, Western Cape with 173, KwaZulu-Natal 145, and Limpopo had 95 matters related to mob justice or injustice. Then the third highest contributor, whereby we could establish a motive, was in tax-related violence, which contributed 237 matters, and the highest contributing provinces were Gauteng with 110, Western Cape with 45, and then the Eastern Cape with 39 matters. Then fourth was illicit mining, which contributed 94 incidents, and the three contributing provinces were Free State with 65 matters related to illicit mining, 23 in Gauteng, and we also had 6 of the matters in Mpumalanga. Then the fifth category was a matter of police officials with 85 matters, and the highest province being Gauteng with 28 matters. However, one needs to take into consideration that in the 28, we have included 10 police officials which were killed who were based at the head office. Then the provinces was KwaZulu-Natal, that was the highest, Eastern Cape 13, and then the sixth was farm matters, which was the sixth with 62 matters, and the highest contributing province was Gauteng, followed by Northwest and Limpopo with 9 cases each, then Free State and Mpumalanga with 8 matters each. Then when we look at the political related matters, these were almost exclusively based in the KwaZulu-Natal province, with 30 having occurred in that province and 2 having occurred in the Western Cape. Now, the committee needs to keep in mind that this list, together with the incidents, might not be exhaustive, as not all cases would the motive be mentioned. Furthermore, the motive in some instances can only be revealed after the arrest during an interview with the suspect. So these are the remote databases that were held by different divisions within the SAPS, from which we tried to extract the matters so that we can be in a position to contextualize what are the contributory factors to the picture that we have observed in terms of MED. Then in terms of the matter of police officials, we had 85 police officials were murdered, and these were murdered in 80 incidents. And then in the latter financial year, we had 83 members, and then they were murdered in 82 incidents. Of the 85 police officials murdered in the 2017-18 financial year, 28 were fatally wounded while they were on duty, and some of the police officials were killed while performing duties within the police station or CSC. Of course, keeping in mind that 5 of those officials were the ones that were massacred at the Engcobo police station. Then further 2 members were found murdered in Koffiefontein police station, and in both incidents, firearms were robbed from the community service center. And we also need to keep in mind that the fact that police officials are attacked in the line of duty serves as a vicious reminder of the encounters that the officers are faced with on a daily basis in their quest to ensure that South Africans are and feel safe. Then we also looked at the acts of violence against persons on farms and small holdings. We contextualized the definition of these acts because we felt that there's a need to understand from the rural safety strategy what constitute or how these acts are defined. We say that acts of violence against persons on farms and small holdings refers to acts aimed at persons residing on, working on, or visiting farms and small holdings, whether with the intent to murder or commit a crime. In addition, all acts of violence against infrastructure and property in the rural community aimed at disrupting the legal farming activities as a commercial concern, whether the motives are related to ideology, land dispute, land issues, revenge, grievance, racist concerns, or intimidation, are excluded from the definition of acts of violence on persons, on farms and small holdings. Similarly, cases related to domestic violence or liquor abuse or resulting from common social interaction between people are also excluded from this definition. Then we had in the current, we mentioned in slide 20 that during 2017-18 financial year, 62 individuals were murdered during 58 attacks on farms and small holdings. Other crimes that were committed during this incident of murder include 33 counts of house robbery at residential, 6 of attempted murder, 2 of rape, stock theft, and a single count of carjacking, robbery with firearm, and kidnapping. This data was reconciled with some of the databases maintained by other stakeholders in the industry, including some of the unions. Now, the provincial breakdown, 42 of the murders occurred on farms, 15 on small holdings, and 1 at a cattle post. In 35 of the incidents, the victims were attacked inside the places of residence, 16 outside the residence, in 2 incidents in the field, and 1 incident at a kraal. In the 43 cases in which property that was robbed could be established, it was found that firearms and vehicles were robbed in 14 cases. 46 of the 62 victims were white and 16 were African, and among the murder victims, 52 were owners or occupiers of the premises where they were killed, 9 were farm workers, and 1 was a farm manager. Now, when looking at the murder of women and children, what we realize is that both murders of girls, boys, and women have increased. Girls have increased by 29, boys by 117, and the women by 291. Now, here we tried to bring it down to see what is the percentage contribution of these murders to the national total. So when you bring together women and children in a group, we have 3,915 murders whereby a woman or a child has been murdered. 2,930 women were murdered in this financial year. Boys were 294. Girls were 294, boys was 691, and the overall percentage contribution was 19.3% of the murders, or 3,915 of the murders that we have recorded were those whereby a woman or a child has been murdered. Then this one, we gave an overview in terms of crimes committed against women and children. We've already touched on the murder. Total sexual offenses, we've touched on it. Attempted murder, assault, GBH has increased by 1,307. Common assault, we have increased by 3,052. And then those that were committed against children, the murder of children has also gone up by 146. And sexual offenses gone down. Attempted murder has gone down by 123. We also look at the instruments that were used to commit murder in all these murders. And the 2 instruments most commonly used in those cases in which the weapon used to commit a crime could be established were found to be firearms, which were used in a commission of 6,551 counts. Then knives were used in 4,868 murders. Now, in analyzing these counts where firearms were used to commit murder, one need to take into consideration the possibility of the following existing scenario. One firearm could have been used in one incident to commit multiple murders. The second, one firearm could have been used in more than one incident by the same perpetrator. Or one firearm could have been used in more than one incident by different perpetrators in different policing precincts or provinces. That is, perpetrators can borrow each other firearms or have a contact from where they can loan out firearms. Forensic laboratory services have confirmed instances whereby one firearm have been used on average to commit around 8 times, for instance, crimes like murder or robbery, aggravating circumstances. Then the provincial overview of the murders. Murder has increased in have decreased in Mpumalanga and the Northern Cape, and then it has increased across all the other provinces. And among the 7 provinces that recorded increase, the highest was in the Western Cape with 401, followed by Limpopo with 98, which is a reversal from the previous instance. The consumption of alcohol and or drugs by the offender or victim prior to the crime is not always easy to establish, as such information is not necessarily recorded in the case dockets. The information mentioned in this section, we tried to identify instances whereby alcohol was used, and we came across instances whereby it was identified that either the victim or the perpetrator at the time of commission of the murder, they had consumed alcohol. And when we look at the application for licenses for legal places of selling alcohol, we have also realized an increase in the application for these types of premises. Then I think we have covered the crime of murder. If you allow me, can I just skip to some of the crimes that we felt that maybe we need to touch base on? We also looked at the instances of kidnapping, whereby we observed that there were 5,455 cases of kidnapping that were reported to the police. Then the N above there, it shows the total population size and the 10% sample that we drew to analyze the case. We observed that the majority of the kidnappings were reported in Gauteng, and then it was determined that from crime intelligence that 41 cases of instances of kidnapping for ransom were reported in the current financial year. However, from the sample, we determined that those that were for ransom were only 10. Those where kidnapping happened in the commission of other crime were 75. And then the bulk was instances where the purpose of the kidnapping was to commit a sexual offense. And in that sample, we determined that 121, the kidnapping was done with a sexual offense purpose in mind. And we also discovered that 105 incidents of rape emanated from those sexual offense related kidnappings. 2 minutes. Can I just maybe look at the instances? Of course, carjacking, we have the top 30 stations, but then I would just like to look at the instances where robbery in non-residential premises were happening. We found that in most instances, the robbery at non-residential premises was happening at convenience stores with 1079, and then spaza shops also had highest incidents with 5,771. Liquor outlets, we had 804. Schools, whereby the robbery at non-residential happened at the school, we had 378. Street hawkers, we had 60. At the police station, we had 2 instances, the Engobo one, and the other 2 were attempts. And then government buildings, 28, fast food or restaurant outlets, we had 281. Then the other crime that maybe I would just like to touch on in the remaining 2 minutes that I have is the crime of robbery of cash in transit. Robbery of cash in transit, we had increased when one looks at that particular crime. Robbery of cash in transit increased by 86 counts from 152 to 238, and this crime was at its lowest peak in the 2014-15 financial year. Then I'll skip the next 2 slides and look at instances where these are the types of premises where it occurred. Most of the CITs happened on the road, in business areas, and then 40 was in spaza shops or malls. And then the type of robbery of cash in transit versus the instrument used. On those that were on the Ahmad Road was on the car, 55 explosives were used in 55 incidents, and then firearms were used in 29. Cross pavements mostly committed with firearms, and then 2 explosives were used. When the AV was static, 26 incidents were used where firearm was used. And in most of the incidents, the security personnel's firearms was taken. Then the stock theft issue is also a matter of concern because it has been increasing across many provinces. And when we estimated the value, we found that it's in the region of above 100,000 or more. And with the time that the chairperson has allocated me, I think I've just gone up by 1 minute, and I would stop the presentation here because of time frames. Thank you.
Thank you very much, General. Any additions? We will now go to General Sitole. Any additions from your side? Or should we go to questions immediately? Okay. Yes, honourable members, I mean, I think the Minister, when he introduced the subject this morning, said, you know, the stats is nothing to write home about, but I think what is quite important to note is that the murder increase of 6.9%, it is really, I think, alarming and totally unacceptable. And it's clear, if we look at the statistics, that violent crime is indeed a clear and present danger to all South Africans and their relevant communities. Now, my question to the Minister and maybe to the National Commissioner is, judging from the statistics, it's clear that we need a strategic intervention from SAPS, not a mere tactical or operational response. And there's 2 issues that I think that's quite clear from the statistics, and it's related to the NDP. The issue of specialized units. Gang crime is quite evident in the slides, as well as taxi-related violence. I think at the previous occasion, the National Commission indicated the process of specialized units is currently underway. Can he maybe give us, in terms of a strategic intervention, what is the specific road ahead? And then also the issue of firearms. It's quite clear that in most cases, especially the murders, firearms is quite prevalent. Now, due to certain reasons, the Firearm Control Act couldn't be amended, but can we get maybe a clear indication of the strategies and approaches to deal with illegal firearms, but firearms in general, from a governance point of view? Because it's quite clear, it's a debate we as South Africans cannot escape for longer. We must, you know, debate the presence and the availability of firearms in our society. That's the 2 issues from my side. Honourable Malabatsi.
Thank you, Chairperson. My first question, can you tell us the manner in which crime statistics are applied as a tool to fight crime? The second one, at the heart of the so-called contact crimes is the abuse of alcohol and drugs. Tell us about your achievements on the confiscation of illegal drugs. My third one, your stock theft has increased in almost all provinces. Is your rural safety strategy effective? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Mumula.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for your presentation. My first question, will you please indicate which year of the census data used to calculate the population ratio of crime? My second question, is the MOU with the statistic SA still operational? My third question, is there good cooperation between SAPS and Statistics SA? My last question, do you have sufficient capacity in the Crime Information and Analysis Center to conduct regular and sufficient crime analysis in South Africa? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Imam Sheikh.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, what I don't see is, before I go on my question, is I don't know if in future we could, the issue of missing children in South Africa is really a serious concern right now, and maybe you need to give us specifics in terms of the missing children in the country, because I'm not sure which category it actually falls under when I have a look at your presentation. But coming back to the issue of the cash in transit, the kidnapping and the missing children, can you tell us what special intervention measures are you putting in place? Have you started that? And what is the success rate, if there's any, at this stage? The second thing is this. I think in our previous presentations, we identified a lot of police stations that needed attention, and I think together with the Honourable Minister and Commissioner, we've agreed there will be interventions at that particular police station, maybe taking police station by police station. And if you look at the crime stats provided today, there are specific, I'll give you an example of the Western Cape. You're talking about Delft, you're talking about Mitchell's Plain, you're talking about Nyanga. Clearly there's a problem in specific areas, maybe as a result of the socio-economic, whatever it is. Now, I'd like you to tell us specifically those areas and those police stations based on our previous discussion. What are you going to do about intervention in those police stations and making those, turning around that police stations from the challenges we seem to be experiencing in terms of your report to having them to better police or manage that particular areas and bring down the crime rate. Now, we talk about, it seems like a lot of these crimes, particularly with murder, Minister, you're going to agree with us, is firearms. We're talking about knives. And I remember that many, many years ago when I grew up, it was a criminal offense to walk around with a knife. And police used to intercept you on the road, stop you and arrest you. Now, it looks like firearms, knives, and alcohol are the driving force. This is what most of these criminals seem to be using. Should we not change our strategy in terms of how we're going to deal? And I know there are many of them, including myself, that's calling for making South Africa a gun-free South Africa. Maybe that will give police better opportunities to be able to deal with criminals, including the knives. How are we going to deal with it? And alcohol, and remember I previously said about now that alcohol might be available at the schools. So it's not going to get any better. It's going to get worse. Please tell us how you're going to intervene in terms of this. I'll stop there for now, Chair.
Thank you very much, members. Honourable Marke.
Thank you, Chairperson. I checked that the increases are explained according to the population, meaning that it will be said in 2010, 2011, it was so many murders per 100,000 or per 10,000. That's how I understood it to be presented. But I think there's something missing there. That during all this time, the population increased, which automatically means that the number of police officers per 10,000 have decreased. And I didn't see it mentioned there. So according to me, it stands to reason that if the number of police officers decrease by 10,000, then the crime might increase. Because in 2010, 2011, it means maybe we had, let's say, 20 police per 10,000. Now it means we have 3 per 10,000. And I think that must be mentioned there, so that it makes sense to a South African citizen that now we have only 2 per 10,000. And what do you expect? Not that I justify anything, but I think it will make sense if it was explained that way. And the number of police officers keeps on going down. And I don't know what we expect. Do we expect crime to decrease as numbers of police decrease? I'm not very sure, and I would think that must be clearly stated there. One other question, the distribution of resources, especially police officers. It's not shown the top 30. How did we, nothing changed. The crime stats in terms of those police stations doesn't seem to have changed. Is the allocation of resources to those police stations, has it changed? Do we have more personnel in Inyanga? Or what happened? If we want it to change, then those statistics must go along with the resources that are allocated there. Thank you, Chairperson.
Honourable Marke, Honourable Mabija.
Thank you, Chairperson. Nothing as yet.
Thank you very much. Honourable Kole Barnard.
Thank you, Chair. Could you tell me what census population data you've used for your calculations? I so well remember the 2013 debacle when the SAPS used outdated population figures, which then exaggerated the decreases in serious crime categories. And I'm sure we can believe that you wouldn't do that, but I would like to know what stats you used for your calculations. And then in the Memorandum of Understanding with Stats SA, SAPS were working with them before that for about 2 years. Unfortunately, that included the 2013 debacle, but you actually signed it in 2015. Is that still in place? And then for my third, thank you for finally putting in rural and farm murders and attacks after all our years of asking you to do so. And we had many assurances that you would, so it's the first time it's actually happened, so thank you for that. But now it's most difficult to analyze the 62 recorded murders because of the years when they were not reported. So how do we know, and how can we analyze this to understand whether or not the rural safety strategy is working or failing? I believe it's failing. I've gone to too many stations where they've done a tick box exercise, but the reality is there's one vehicle and one officer out there in a massive area. So I don't believe it's working. But do you anywhere in this document, which I've not yet had a chance to go through, obviously, reflect instances of torture? Now, I ask because torture in rural areas is frequently accompanied by rape and or murder, and it's extended torture either for hours or even days, frequently of elderly people living on these small holdings or farms in rural areas. So is there some way we can look at your statistics and work out if there is an increase, as the perception is, because of the horrendous photographs circulated on an almost daily basis, or is this simply lumped in and categorized as a murder or an attack or attack GBH? Because it speaks to the categorization and your categories that you include. So I want to know if all these experts we hear you've hired have gone into your categories, and as I say, I'm very grateful that this is included, but how far apart? I mean, we seem to previously have so many lumped together. Have they spread them out to allow for believable analysis? Thank you.
Honourable Kolobana, Honourable Mbele.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for the presentation. Albeit quite brief, it would have been useful if the committee was able to get the comprehensive presentation and interaction with SAPS management as in past years, but hopefully we can get that right going forward. I think maybe just on a lighter note, just to say to the Minister that while one of his advisors might be a former DA MP, some of us are working to ensure that his whole office, including his position, is filled by former DA MPs. So it may just be the start of a trend. In terms of the breakdown of murder figures, we know that typically the majority of murders, attempted murders and assaults are social fabric crimes, right? So they're arising out of domestic contexts, interpersonal violence between people who know each other. But in the last few years, the proportion of murders occurring during the commission of other crimes, especially organized crimes, has been on the increase. We see it with the hijacking picture as well as aggravated robberies. So my first question is, has there been a continuation of this trend of murder comprising an increasing percentage of resulting from the commission of organized violent crime, which would mean that that increasing trend is more and more a function of policing failures rather than increasing social and family dysfunction. My second question, Chair, is I might have missed it. I think I heard the General make reference to murder rate per 100,000, but because I didn't see it reflected on the slide when he said it, I just need clarity as to whether we do have that murder rate per 100,000 as opposed to the raw murder figures, and if there's a trend analysis using the same baseline. I'm sorry if I missed that, but I just wanted to be clear on that. And then my third question, Chair, is that the Minister and the National Commissioner are well aware of the dilemma that they'll be facing in the short to medium term in the face of what I've called the shrinking SAPS, with declining budget baselines and reductions in the post-establishment. And obviously that doesn't bode well for fixing the understaffing, under-resourcing, under-equipping, and under-training at station level, as well as in some of our specialized units, so that we can ensure adequate capacity for crime prevention patrolling, for rapid response, for investigations, and all those policing functions. Added to that, we've calculated that the average budget spend in the police service has been around 9.1 million rand per VIP protected in Program 5, while the average spend per citizen is around 1,500 rand. So huge differences in magnitude of resource allocation for policing protection. And so, given these two trends or these two graph lines of increases in some of the most serious and violent murders and a decreasing in the resourcing and budgets which backs up or underpins the policing capacity, what is the Minister and the National Commissioner's plan to solve this dilemma? How do you fit that square peg into a round hole, to mix my metaphors? Because in the absence of some sort of innovative, incisive, and well-grounded in reason response, we can only see the crime picture get worse in the coming years. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, Honourable Bailey, maybe just one issue you've raised. Of course, we will in the fourth term have a full session on a finer analysis of the stats by the researcher as well as the content advisor, and of course the outside panel and Stats SA. So I can give you the assurance there will be a proper engagement. Today is just a release. Honourable Groenewald.
Dankie, Voorsitter. Chair, I want to start by saying that I do understand that the Honourable Minister actually inherited these statistics. He only became the Minister actually after the term has been expired. I think the National Commissioner, he can account for almost 50% for the statistics. But at least we have a new management team, which I said previously that I hope that we will effectively fighting crime. What is disturbing, Chairperson, is that if you look at the murder rate, it is the 6th consecutive year that we have an increase in the murder rate in South Africa. If you calculated it over those 6 years, it's a 30.5% increase. And if you look at the per 100,000 of the population, we are now at 35.1 per 100,000, where the world average is about 7 per 100,000. So that gives us an indication. When it comes to violence and murder in South Africa, it's really a serious matter we will have to attend to. I want to thank the Minister for giving us the farm murder statistics. I would just want the General gave an analysis of how many owners, how many workers. It's not in the slides, if I heard correctly, if I can just get that again. And, well, it's the first time since 2007, Chairperson, that we received these farm statistics. Between me and the Minister, we had some conversations, and I want to thank you. Because last year I had to put up a fight to try to get hold of the statistics, but now we got them. And I think that is the correct way of handling it. My third question, Chairperson, is on your slide 29, if you look at the top 10 weapons used in murder, if you add the numbers, it does not make sense, because if you calculate the numbers that has been given to each and every weapon used here, we end and it says other. I don't know what other is. Then we have 15,864 cases. So there's 4,472 cases if you take the murder numbers of over 20,000. So I just would like to have an explanation on that one. The 4,472, that's outstanding, which is also not part of other. What weapons has been used there? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Groenewald. Thank you very much, members. We will then go to the Honourable Minister of Police, Honourable Cele, and the National Commissioner. Minister.
Well, Chairperson, as in my opening said, we'll have to find the new methods of dealing with this, because already we are put on the back foot for our next engagement. Yes, we are really put on the back foot. I hope there will be better arrangements than this one. I agree with Bawumpele to say we honor the committee, and we definitely like to answer some questions. But it does give us a problem that we're detained now here. But we'll respect that, but we'll ask that next time things are put in a proper perspective so that we don't detain when we have program to follow. They will answer. The last one, I think these matters are incidents sometimes rather than individual matter. Will be incidents where 10 people will be shot, 9 people will be shot. So you'll mention it as a firearm used, but not on individual, but on a group kind of matter. So I have asked that question. That's an answer. We can refine the answer as is as we go forward, because I believe that we'll have to further discuss one question that was raised: what do we do with these statistics to go forward? I think all of us will sit down and find the contributions. One thing that we are really calling is that it cannot be the police alone that are dealing with the crime matters. So that call will continue. The last that I want to make is the member, Make, on the question of the mathematics you put of 100 people, according to this. I think Ms. Banat also did it. So there have been some space, I'm sure members of parliament will help me. There's been some space where nobody gave us the actual population of South Africa until early this year, where they said 57.3. There have been some 54, you'll hear that one talking about 54, you'll hear they're talking about 55, 56, 53. So you would ask and they say we're somewhere there. But now we know that is 57.3. That's a final official number. So coming back to your question, the dwindling numbers of the police and the growing population. Let's take what the United Nations is saying. United Nations is saying a proper policing will be made in any nation by 1:220. By one police looking after 220 people. But in South Africa, the average, if I'm not mistaken, is 1:383. It's almost doubled. So let's put the round figure to 400, which means South African police are looking after the doubled number. So that goes beyond the police. That is a number for the government and the South African society as a whole. One major benefit of policing is the visibility of police. So if you have 50% of the population policing, you would not have a proper visibility, let alone other responses and all that. So that's the thing we are working. So you say, you didn't hear, what are we doing about that? The commissioner and I and the management, we have agreed that in 2010, there were 200,000 police in South Africa. Now there are 191. We're 10,000 police down. I don't know. I heard you talking a lot about 10,000. So we're 10,000 police down, which means we do have a problem. Even to start from now on, we'll have to match 2010, which will owe about 10 years to be up to the speed, up to the day. So that's a question that we'll answer. We're trying to answer that question. We have agreed that at least in the colleges we have, rather than taking normal numbers that we every year we take. We're talking of between 5,000 and 7,000 this year to put in the colleges. So to go back to 2010, let alone to come back to 2019. To go back to 2010. So those are the things. But as the chair is saying, that police will need the support of the portfolio committee in terms of resources and all that, and explain how did it happen and how it could have been avoided, how it can be corrected. Because I think the theme now is how do we correct the things going forward. So I wanted to be brought on those, and think the rest of the team will answer the questions before we run where we are really late now.
Thank you, Minister. No, I think we take note of the time, and we indicated that, so we will, if there's prompt responses from the National Commissioner, I mean, we can close proceedings. National Commissioner, you can go forward. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Honourable Chair, Honourable Minister, and the honourable members. Chair, let me just start by adding the operational side from the direction given by the Minister. I think, firstly, the number that the Minister has mentioned, which is 10,000 below, it's just talking between the difference of 2010 and now. It's not necessarily looking at the population increase vis-a-vis the current number. In the business case that we have put forward, our deficit is 62,000. So, and the actions that we have taken, we've reviewed the personnel plan of the organization. This financial year, our intake, we could afford 3,000. But after engagement also with the Minister, we decided to cut somewhere else, and we increased the number to 5,000. And next year, we are starting, our colleges, they can take up to 7,000. That's what we will consistently maintain until such time that we close the gap. Over and above that, I've also ordered the rationalization process, the migration of resources from the higher levels of the organization down to police stations. So that process has also started, and the first priority is the beefing up of the police stations. There was a question about the top 30. Some of them, they're in a process of upgrading. And it's not only the upgrading of the policing resources, it's also the physical resources that goes with that. It's an exercise that we refer to as the strategic deployment of resources. So that is current, it's happening, and will be complemented by the increased numbers of the population plan. For the future, the population plan of the organization will be running concurrently with the population growth. As the population grows, the plan is also going to grow and accommodate it. Our response, as per the crime stats, is following the stabilization and the normalization approach. Under the stabilization and normalization approach, we're starting with the crimes of fear, because if you look into the stats, the crimes that do not necessarily instill much fear to the public, they've gone down. But the crimes that instill fear are actually the ones that have become a cause for concern. Firstly, start with the question raised by the Honourable Chair. I think, Chair, the work study investigation has been completed on the specialized units. And my directive, as we're starting the festive season, we need to kick off with the serious and violence crime, that is specialized unit, that should respond to both the murders, the taxi violence, and the gang-related crimes. So other specialized units are going to follow beyond, that is this particular period. And one of the things that we have also intensified, I think we are aware of the problem of the Western Cape. We have strengthened the gang combating and prevention strategy, but we have also deployed other force levels to stabilize. As we're speaking, the stabilization of the Western Cape is also in progress. The numbers of the police that has been increased, the 290, is still there. And we decided to extend on the period, and so that we are able to stabilize. So it's a beefing up of the gang combating and prevention strategy. Then on the part of training again, we decided to increase both the tactical side, which is where we came up with a declaration that the basic training changes to technical response level, that for deployment at all police stations in the country, this is starting with the next intake at basic training. So the basic training curriculum has been reviewed in order for us to be able to provide this same response. The organized crime threat analysis has been reviewed, and we operationalize the OCTA strategy. I think the minister indicated that we dropped the ball, and it also affected or impacted on the organized crime approach. We have reviewed that, it's now fully in place, and it went together with the review and the turnaround of the CI, which I think at the moment they are fully in place. But we have also escalated organized crime to transnational level. We have linked it to SAPCO, there's binational cooperation agreements, which has been strengthened. There's also regional, continental, and international cooperation agreements. They're all running within the OCTA strategy. A structured national secretariat has been put in place. Both DPCI and crime detection are actually, as we speak, providing that particular response. Then the activation plan, I think, has been common in the country. The 72-hour response has been strengthened. And I think it's one intervention that is helping us to scare the criminals, because they don't want to be intercepted before they commit the crime in progress. So this particular activation has been strengthened in such a manner that we've increased the activation database. We brought in more other forces to join hands with us, including civil society, so that we strengthen that particular activation. Then we formalized the modus operandi analysis center, because we wanted to know what is it that is new that the criminals are inventing in terms of their methods. So this center is taking off, and it will be dealing with both cyber response and as well as the deep web and dark web, that is processes, including all other modus operandi. Then we also decided to provide or to respond to criminal operations planning. I'm sure the public might have seen, if they go on an ATM, they came up with a new modus operandi to protect the crime scene. Then they would deploy 15 people with AK-47s 500 meters away from the crime scene and protect the crime scene. But we have taken out our high risk, high, medium, and low risk forces, which is the task force and the NIU. And both of those particular forces, they are there, they are standby with helicopters and everything. They can respond within a very short space of time, and we're taking them head on when it comes to that. Then again, crimes against women and children, we decided to beef up the capacity of FCS so that we're able to provide a response. The anti-rape strategy has been operationalized. It's also in progress to provide, that is a response. And Chair, what has also become most important for us is now the normalization response, which has culminated into a normalization plan. This normalization talks strictly to massive community mobilization. And I'll talk to a few interventions. The community policing strategy is going to be launched between the 1st and 15th, that is September. And what you will be seeing with the launch of the community policing strategy is the community in blue concept, where the neighborhood watch patrol is going to be enhanced the whole country. And it's all community patrollers. They will be properly structured, and they will be linked together with the police. But we also bringing in the community that is command. Then we've also mobilized the traditional leaders under the traditional policing concept in order to help us with moral regeneration and creating safety in the rural areas and quite a lot of other areas. Then we're going to be starting again with together with the festive season, the country in blue concept. We have acquired sufficient blue lights and everything And the order is gonna be between sunset and sunrise. All the vehicles must be in blue, and the patrols across the country, and that's what's going to be happening. On the mobilization of government agencies and civil society, the minister has convened the crime prevention summit. I think it's scheduled for 13 and 14, if I'm not mistaken. That is by the Secretariat. And here, we're going to be working on the national crime prevention framework, and we're going to deal with the removal of root causes of crime, working together with all other stakeholders. The youth crime prevention, the summit has taken place, the launch is taking place in October, and the intention here is taking the young person out of reach. Our aim here is to collapse the criminal operation. The creation of safer cities, Chair, we've been to China and Thailand last week. The minister and the president, they also went there. There in that particular summit, South Africa were the only country that presented a safer city strategy. It's completed already. And we are planning to have to convene a national safer city summit. We've already identified 10 of the safer city pilots in the country. I think in Gauteng, it's Johannesburg and Pretoria. In Cape Town, in Western Cape is Cape Town, and in Mpumalanga, Witbank, Northwest, I think Rustenburg. We've got the whole list, and this safer cities is also going to be talking to not only a community-based response, but a technology response. We're going to digital transformation in order to make sure that all our cities are safe. They can attract investors, and they can also talk to maybe what we can call social, that is stability. We strengthened the partnership, Chair. SAPRIC is working with us to respond on the economic crimes, Consumer Good Council. We've been together. And I have personally introduced the illicit economy combating and prevention strategy, because one of our problems is economy, so providing a response there. Then we've got BAC working with us. We've just entered into a partnership with PSL. They are now working together with us. We're expanding all these partnerships so that we're able to provide, I think, a normalization response to these particular crimes. And so, Chair, we are also working on the moral fiber, contamination crimes, providing a response to drugs. And that we do by mobilizing the drug master plan within the police, within the national crime prevention strategy at local and provincial, that is level. In addition to that, we're also responding to drugs through the unconventional policing approach, which is your organized crime, that is approach. But we're also working on drugs at regional as well as continental and cooperation level. We've also introduced new approaches so that we can maybe respond best to criminals. That include your spiritual crime prevention concept, which will be taking off with a spiritual crime prevention conference. That is also scheduled. I think that is scheduled for this month to provide that particular response. Then on the investigation side, a short-term multidisciplinary investigation approach. We might have seen it in KZN. We've already responded to the matters in KZN, and we've arrested few people. The killings there, they've actually gone a little bit behind. We managed then to maybe stabilize the heist, and we're working on stabilizing the gang-related crimes. And after all, Chair, we want to move beyond and sustain this response to the crime stats, and we want to come closer now to the communities so that we can bring back their confidence. The rest of the questions, Chair, they are technical, and I will afford maybe the colleagues, if there's any specific questions they want to take. But this is a holistic and strategic response to the crime stats. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, General. Is there any other responses? General Masamula.
Thanks, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. Just on the question of the firearms, we do have a number of operations currently in the country. We do have Operation High Density, Operation Fiela, which is focusing countrywide, and we have specific operations targeting various areas like your 3 provinces that are affected by your rhino poaching. We have got an operation at the RSA Mozambique border where we have got vehicles crossing over to Mozambique. And of course, yeah, here we have Operation Thunder. In terms of firearms, Honorable Chair and members, during the operations, you'd see that, especially if you go to slide 3, we had an increase in the number of cases where we, for illegal possession of firearm countrywide, which increased to 17,568. So, yeah, and with regard to murders as a result of organized crime, like your drugs, your, I think the NASCOM will reset, we have got the current Operation Thunder in the Western Cape. And with regard to organized in terms of taxi violence, in the 4 main provinces where we have got a problem of taxi violence, that is your KZN, your Eastern Cape, Gauteng, and Western Cape, we do have specialized taxi task teams that are dealing with the taxi violence in that area. Thank you very much.
Is that all the responses? Thank you.
Yeah, I think, Chair, we are fine. Maybe just the last to mention is that the stabilization is now taking the geographical approach. We are identifying hotspots throughout the country, and we come up with stabilization interventions the moment we then normalize, and provincial commissioners are driving that process. And we are also aware, Chair, that the public has taken pain. Maybe I might just say from Aristotle, hope is a walking dream, and from Helen Keller, just when the caterpillar thought the world was over, it became a butterfly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, we're going to close the meeting at this stage. We will, of course, in the 3rd week of October, have the proper panel, as we had in the previous round. We will have the analysis by the research and the content I advise in the next 2 weeks, and we'll, of course, again invite the relevant research institutions to that engagement. Members, just to indicate that tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, we are receiving the first quarterly from IPIT, tomorrow at 9. Thank you very much. The meeting is closed.